So, Alex, what I've always wanted to know was what was your first experience like sitting in a channeling reading or channeling circle where you were the one who was there to find out if the spirit guides had any message for you? I want to know who was channeling, where you were,
Well,
what did you ask? What were your questions?
the first one I was in was Agatha's, and Agatha would go around, and she had a couple of little spirit guides. One was named Morning Glory, and the other was named Dewdrop. And the one Dewdrop would come at the end and say, "I do drop in," and sort of close the thing. And then she had a couple of strong spirits that Dr. Newton. Now, Dr. Newton turned out to be one of my guides that she channeled, and it was Isaac Newton, the English astronomer and famous scientist. And he always had a very sort of heavy, serious voice. And then she might channel an angel or something else. And they all had different voices, though they spoke through a little old lady. I had a kind of soft voice like that, you know. So they altered the voice somewhat. But I've always said that mediums are like musical instruments. Two different people playing on the same piano make it sound differently. So here we have the instrument. And of course, when she channeled Morning Glory and Dewdrop, it sounded differently than whatever with Dr. Newton. But she would occasionally channel some other guides that we did not know, or she would say, "This is your Indian guide," or whatever it was. So they were identified. They were not mysterious. And so personal guides' names were given out, which I found very interesting. And one of the things that I found out about her was that she knew what was going on. And my first actual channeling experience did not take place in a group. It took place at home. This is a very interesting story. In the middle of the night on a Saturday, I got one that was the most horrible toothache one could possibly imagine. And anybody who's ever had a toothache needed to have it explained to them how bad they can be. So, of course, Saturday night, no one could find a dentist at 11 o'clock at night and this and that. And I couldn't wake her up, and I didn't know what to do. And I said, well, she always said you can ask your guides. Well, I knew that I had a doctor, Bartow, and I knew that I had somebody else, but I didn't know all my guides' names. So there I am, and I'm sitting there going, oh. And I said, I called out to the spirits, I really need some help. I need you to tell me what to do, because I think I'm going to die with this thing, and I can't just run out in the middle of the night to find a dental office. So they write to me, we want to talk to you. Because I was doing automatic writing. That was one thing. I had started doing automatic writing, which I'd actually done before I met Agatha, but I'm doing it on my own. The first person that introduced me to me was an Italian violinist who was very psychic, and he says, oh yes, we do automatic writing and we work pendulums. So I played with that, but I didn't really take it that seriously. So this is now or never. So I asked them, I said, I need your help. We want to speak to you, comes through in the writing. Could you ask the question and the pen writes? Okay. I said, can't you just write to me? I mean, no, we want to speak to you. Are you saying through me? Yes. Well, this I had never done consciously. So they said, just be still and do nothing. Suddenly, out of me comes this voice. My name is Harold. Not the sweetest delivery you ever heard. It was like it spit at me. It was just, my name is Harold, just like that. Whack! I kind of rolled back. And I said, are you my gatekeeper? And he goes, no, but I'm here to help you. So I'm acting like kind of like Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. You remember the guy with a dummy on his...
You're asking questions and the response is coming through your own body.
Exactly. So I need someone to help me with this. How about my doctor? Is my doctor there? So all of a sudden, this is Barto with a big thick accent. He says, you don't need me. You need somebody else. I get for you. Okay. So I'm waiting for the next one. Then I get the voice of voices. The spirit comes. I'd never heard of him. My name is Ahmed Kamin. I am a scientist and healer. It sounds like something out of one of those old mummy movies, you know? When they go down in the crypt, you know, in the Egyptian crypt, and the mummy comes alive and starts talking to you. I mean, I was raised on that kind of stuff, so I said, this is really weirdness. He says, you have infection. He said, you don't have toothache, you have infection. Do as I tell you to do, and I heal you. Nothing I could refuse there. So he says, you must eat nothing with sugar, not even fruit, not a candy, nothing with any sweetness to it, nothing for a week. And every 15 minutes, you must put hot water with salt in your mouth and hold it in your mouth as long as you can, then spit it out, do it again. So this did not last very long, the conversation. The next thing I knew, I was awake again. I mean, I was myself. No pain. No pain at all. If I banged on it, it had no pain. It was ready to kill me before I started this. He had taken the pain away. Wow. I did exactly as he said. Then I went to the dentist. The dentist says, you don't have any, there's nothing wrong with your tooth. You had an infection in the gum. And that's what you had. He was right, had infection. So this is the first time I channeled in a conscious way. So I go to Agatha without having said a word to her about this. The class was on Tuesday. She says, oh, I see you've been channeling. I said, God, she's got spies in my house. This is weird. Spies in my house. That she knew about it. Mm. She said, you see, it works, doesn't it? I said, yeah. And so it was very evidential. People asked me, for example, are you an easy believer? I said, no, I'm not a believer at all. I'm an agnostic who, through experience, becomes a Gnostic, which is a knower. I don't believe what other people believe. I believe what's happened to me is what it is, you know? And I said, I'm not going to believe something that somebody else tells me, oh, this really was true. I said, well, I won't disbelieve you, but I'm not so sure. I believe it myself. But if it happens to me, it's like eating a pomegranate. You know when you've eaten one. Because until you eat one, you don't know what one tastes like. So I knew that this had happened to me. And other experiences that proceeded to happen almost in chain reaction to that confirmed this. My other experience in sitting in a seance was the type, they used to have seances like this. This is an old-fashioned seance. You get a guest medium or some medium has a group of people. Maybe there's 20 people in the room. So you sit down there, the medium says a prayer or whatever it is, and then the spirits go around the room, and everybody gets to hear from somebody. A lot of the time it's like, hello, dear, this is Mother. We're doing very fine over here. Daddy's over here, and so's Grandma, and so's the dog. And we're having a lovely time in the spirit world.
No, you're speaking about the spirits of the...
This is the spirits of... No, this is spirits. We're not talking guides here. We're talking about seances when people want to talk to their loved ones.
And so the voice of those people were coming through the medium.
Right. And they sounded, I'm making it, I'm copying it.
Sure.
I'm sitting there. I'm going to be the last one they talk to. By the time they get to me, I'll sound asleep. But anyway, somebody would, I said, kick me when it comes my turn. But anyway, so, oh, this is Aunt Mildred. Yes, we have a nice time. It's pretty nice over here. We have flowers all the time in our garden. Okay, nice. And basically, that was the extent of the message.
So nothing evidential. Maybe.
A little, maybe a little something.
Okay.
You know, Muffy the dog. Oh, yeah, Muffy, sure. I said, if I never sit in another one of these, I'll be really happy. So I said to the spirits, I don't want to do those. I don't want to be the medium, and I don't want to sit anybody else's seance. But these were friends of Bias and friends of Agatha that used to come from out of town to visit and channel for these people. I thought, to be absolutely honest, I thought it was the biggest waste of time I'd ever been involved with. Mm. And that was my personal feeling about it. And I did not want to have that kind of low energy, which after I was finished, when I left the room, I felt like I'm ready to go to bed and have a sleep, or I'm whatever.
What was it about that? Could you pinpoint that about the experience? Because on the surface, it seems people are getting some reassurance or some consolation.
As a young man who has a very inquisitive mind and wants to hear something that really opens some doors in my mind, I was bored to tears. I said, I don't want to do this anymore. This is the most boring thing I ever sat through. I was not in a particularly altruistic state where I was thinking, oh, how lovely for these people. Oh, how wonderful she got to hear from her mother. Mm. I was not particularly altruistic when I started in this work. I was pretty selfish, I think. I'll admit to it. And that which I did was because I said, let's get on with this thing. Come on, I don't want to spend the rest of my life sitting in a room with the people, but talking to the dog and Aunt Mildred. Mm. This is not interesting to me.
You needed something more.
I needed something that really was enlightenment of some kind. And I was getting no enlightenment. And then, of course, everybody saw the energy got, so somebody said, well, now we need to sing a spiritual song. We come to the garden alone where the deer is still on the roses. So they sang some little inane song. Mm. That sounded like some kindergarten class. I said, this thing is moronic. If I don't want to be I'm an intelligent man. It's got to at least be at the level of my intelligence. I want to have it more than the level. I want it to really be something. The first thing I ever automatically wrote, which was long before this happened, I had a visitation from an English monarch whose name was Charles Stuart. Charles Stuart was Charles I. He was beheaded by Cromwell in 1649. But I felt him. I kept feeling him around, and every time I would look in the book, he would keep coming up. And he wrote this on a piece of paper. I may still have that piece of paper. It says, our range of reckoning we one day wish to understand, worthy of our most masterful knowledge. I said, well, that's a line and a half. Go figure that one. I tried to think about it. I took it apart. Our range, our distance of reckoning, figuring something out. You reckon when you figure. You figure it out, reckoning. The reckoning is when you add up all the facts. Our range of adding up all the facts, we one day wish to understand, worthy of our most masterful knowledge. In other words, that it's equal to what we've learned in our lives. I took it to somebody who did analysis on automatic writing. He said this was written by somebody who lived in the 17th century. It's very clear by the vocabulary.
Mm.
And he was. Died 1649. That kind of proof, that's the stuff I wanted. I wanted stuff like that.
Yes.
I wanted stuff that made me stop, think, ask questions. And I wanted that for other people.
Do you feel that the guides that come in through different mediums have some connection, or you might say, this is a person who's interested in this type of information and we're going to channel through him? Because I know you channel many philosophers, historians, world leaders, and composers, people in the very large classical sense in history, where maybe another channel is channeling off-world beings or interdimensional.
I've channeled some off. In fact, recently it's somebody who was from another galaxy.
Yes.
Very cool stuff. Very cool stuff.
But do you feel that that is the guides that come through a person have something to do with the nature of that person?
I think that if you have a musical instrument, you have to have somebody who's capable of playing it. If you have, a little instrument with a couple of notes on it, you're not going to get very many
Like kazoo.
into that. Exactly.
So
Although I have to tell you, I heard a Chinese guy with a one-string violin bowing on this thing. I thought that was the most amazing sound I ever heard played.
I've seen it. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, I think I have, for an unschooled person, that is to say, I dropped out of school, and I dropped out of religion, church at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I have a fairly good handling of the English language and a few foreign languages as well. So they have the vocabulary pretty much of whatever the channel has. If you can't say it, they can't say it through you, unless some of them. I have to give you an exception on this. I had a lady come to me for a reading. I wasn't doing a lot of voice channeling at that point. And she came for the reading, and she's Chinese and spoke perfect English. So it was great. So I said, I don't know what this is, but I hear all these Chinese talking around you. There's so much of it. And she says to me the oddest thing. I thought, this has got to be something. She says, can you repeat the sounds you are hearing? I said, musician, why not? Let me hear it, I'll say it. So the next part of the thing was, she said, you just said my mother's name in Cantonese dialect. Okay? Wow. So Weird But Wonderful has also been a part of the discovery of what a person can do if they're willing to do it and not be afraid, well, I could make a real fool of myself right now. I could have given her chop suey, Wes.
Right.
I didn't know what was going to come through. I had not the slightest idea.
See, that's in your nature, wouldn't you say, to take those chances?
I am a great risk taker.
So we have to have, for those who want to open up channeling for themselves, there is a kind of leap off of the edge of a canyon, in a sense, to know that the wind is going to catch you.
A little bit.
Yeah.
It's like glider riding, going off on gliders. First of all, the thing you have to know is who's looking out for you. My mother used to have a little rhyme that went, who's taking care of the caretaker's daughter while the caretaker's busy taking care? Cute, right? Well, I want to ask that question about myself. Who's taking care of me while everybody else is being taken care of? I'd like to know this. Well, I started having direct connections with the Creator. My first was had when I was in my mid-20s. I was living up on Claremont Avenue, and I said, I don't believe in God, but if there is such a thing, God, now's the time I need to know if you're there. I'm laying flat on the floor. I do a lot of meditation laying flat on the floor. I call it talking to the ceiling. So I'm laying flat on the floor because then my body is in a full restful position and I don't cover any vital points. All of a sudden, the next thing I know, I am out in space someplace. Don't ask me where. And I'm staring at something that looks like this wonderful sort of what's the name of the flower? There's not a peony, but it was one of these beautiful flowers that opens. And there was yellow light coming out of this pink flower, like a lotus type of thing. Very Asiatic looking. And I was seeing stars all around. I was floating in the universe. I was literally out of my body. And a voice speaks to me in a male voice with a very fatherly, I can only say a fatherly sound. I don't know what the hell a fatherly sound sounds like. It didn't sound like my dad.
Right.
It just was this very certain thing who said, you have asked to know me, and I have chosen now to reveal myself to you. Fear nothing. No harm shall ever come to you. As long as you are willing to serve me, I will provide your every need. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. It's right there in the psalm, right?
Yes.
Fear nothing, fear no one. You must hand your fear to me, and I will resolve it for you. And I've been doing that. So there's an old 12-step program thing that says, let go and let God.
Yes.
And it's very important for spirits, for channels. Woo! Well, after this, I felt like I took away from this, I shall never die. That death is only the death of the physical body, that the soul lives forever, and that I'm protected and that I'm meant to do this work. I basically swore an oath. I knew about oaths, as funnily enough, this happened right about the time of the Queen of England being crowned after her father's death. And I watched this thing in 1953 when she was crowned in Westminster Abbey. I was so taken by it. I felt as though I'd seen a real spiritual oath taken in public, and that she would keep it till the day she died. So when I said, I will do it, I felt like, yeah, I can swear this. And then a little tag was added on this, the small print.
Yeah.
It says, the only thing is you can never have a partner. You must live as a lone person. I mean, I have friends, I have a roommate, but I mean, I have no lover, partner, whatever. And so far it's been true. I have had struck out every time I ever hoped to find that. And there were many days I thought, that doesn't sound like a heavy price when you're in your 20s. When you get on towards middle age, I think this is really bad. I have got about as much charm as a rattlesnake, I guess. But what I felt by that was, there's an old biblical quote that says you cannot serve God and mammon, which means human beings. Mm-hmm. You cannot serve them well. It's one or the other. So out of this, I basically have accepted that this may come a little early in this interview. I could say at the end, but why not say it now? People say, what is the purpose of your life? How could you define your life in one sentence? Serve God and help others. That's it. That's all. That's the whole sum of my existence. Serve God and help others, qualified as God directs me to do it, not serve everybody. Serve God, help others as I'm guided to do, not everybody. And that means I have to be discriminating and I have to ask God who is somebody that I need to help and who is not. But I have to take that from a direct command, and I have developed in my body as a kind of and a thing, and I teach this. It's yeah or no or or yes. there's a lot of body language that goes into being a channel, because you can't always talk to yourself. Sometimes I actually look in the mirror and I start to talk into the mirror, and I can hear my voice sounds different, my face looks different, and I'm talking to my God or my spirit guide in the mirror. Mirrors have always had a historic relationship to channeling.
Yes, please talk about that. There's a lot of information out there about even superstitions about mirrors. Don't place them on the floor, or don't have them.
Well, they say, they said that you can walk into a mirror and never come back.
So are mirrors a portal? What are they?
Mirrors are a portal. Absolutely a portal. Mirror is the reflection. There's a chapter in the Bible, I think it's St. Paul, who usually got things wrong, but eventually got a few right. He says, "For now we look through a glass, but darkly, and then we shall see face to face." So we look into the mirror, and then we meet God on the other side, or we meet truth on the other side. That's really what death is described as. You're dying, you look through the mirror, you see yourself passing through the mirror into the other dimension.
How some psychics have used mirrors or some version of scrying, looking into the reflection
of water or inkers, and very
old. A little bit about that.
Yes. Well, that's a technique like crystal balls. Now, almost anything can be used, including a glass of water. If I sit here and I meditate and look in the surf and wiggle it around, I can start to get images and things. It's like reading tea leaves or reading things like runestones and so forth. Divination is something which uses any material manifestation, including looking at the clouds and saying, "Oh, well, I see the clouds are telling me," and whatever. Any movable object. Its pattern, its motion, and everything about it, whether it's tea leaves, coffee, whatever, even a cocktail, I suppose, if you're drunk enough, will give you a message. Tarot cards. I'm writing a book called The Language of the Tarot. I'm finishing that up. That is a real language. It's a language which is very ancient, and you have to know its grammar or you cannot read cards well. But divination has always been a little easier for channels to understand than people who are not. Would you say that the famous handwriting on the wall, that was not something that I think Daniel was familiar with looking at? He happened to go and he looked and he let it talk to him. So I think what a channel has to do is allow the greater force to inform you. The greater force can be the voice that I hear in my head, or it can be, I remember one that I didn't listen to. Cost me a lot of money. All my savings at one point in my career were invested in stock market. And I hear from the kitchen, I'm standing in this, right about there, I hear a voice say, "We want you to stop playing in the market." I said, "Oh, I just have a couple of things I'll have to sort of close out and blah, blah, blah." By the time I did it, I
lost...
One
more hand, like the player in the casino says, just a few more hands.
Just a few more hands, and I lost it all. A lot of money. You don't even want to know how much.
I don't.
But I've come back from it. I've come back from it because I don't take risks of that kind.
So the voice that comes, I've experienced in when I receive a message that many times the voice is very subtle. So when the guide comes through, even though the guide may have a very powerful energy in their tonality of their voice and their presence and their message, while other guides are quieter, still when they're coming into the body, it's almost, I compare it to a feather touching you.
That's true when it's in you.
Yeah.
But the one who warned me about the stock market yelled at me from the kitchen, "We want you to stop playing in the market." It's like that. What? I mean,
metaphors. The guys like to speak in metaphors, and
it was
this was just
quite literal. So now what I do is I try to say that I act as I try to teach everybody that studies with me. I said everybody has to have a traffic light in your head. There's red for stop, yellow for proceed with caution, and yellow for go. And do it now. Don't wait. Do it when it turns green. Do it, or you'll lose the opportunity. Red, not yet. Yellow, be careful. It's changing. And every time you ask, say, should I do it now? And you get a green light, it says, do it. Now just do it. And then don't stop thinking about it. If you get a yellow or a red, wait, because it's going to change. So this is something that I practice in terms of any investments that I might make. I don't have a lot of money in the market, but I have a little bit, And I think that I'm no great judge of this kind of investing. So I also happen to have my guru. I call her my guru. You ever heard of Susie Orman?
Yes.
Yeah, well, she's my guru. I'll tell you why. I says everybody's Jewish mother, looking after their money to make sure they don't die in poverty. No, she's made a lot of money over the years. And
well, it's interesting, the practical aspect of using one's gifts, whatever profession or vocation a person is in. Mm-hmm. It's interesting that throughout history, the idea of healers or gurus or spiritual teachers or psychics or mediums who would charge for their services because spirit is saying, I can speak as a reader myself.
Is where the is worthy of his hire is a biblical teaching.
So how did you make the leap from being this professional touring musician to developing your spiritual gift, on the side, so to speak, and then say, well, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? I mean, you've been doing this for 40, 50 years now.
Okay. I said to my teacher, who kept pushing me to do it, I said, if the spirits can show me over 3 months' time that I can earn as much as I need to pay all my bills and everything through spiritual work, I'll give up the music and take up the spiritual work. And it happened. Suddenly my phone is ringing all the time and people are wanting to come see me and do a class or whatever it was. So then I said, they'd shown me. And then I said, music, and at the same time, all of my music work kind of dried up. It's not from the pandemic or something, but for some reason, a lot of the music that was available was now being used, using mechanical recordings and other stuff. So I basically had to give it up anyway. And that's what I had.
Anyway, or do you think it might have been divinely orchestrated?
No, I think it was
unintended.
No, I think it was absolutely divinely orchestrated. And not only that, right about that time, I have friends saying to me, oh, a friend of mine went down to work in Florida, and I got to know a lot of his students, and they were involved with some various psychics and gurus or whatever. So I did a lot of readings down in Florida, and one of the people that I met had a Brazilian girlfriend, and he said, you got to come and meet my Brazilian girlfriend. So I met her, and she said, oh, we have lots of people in Brazil who would love to meet you. And she said, why don't you come on down? And I said, well, sure. I didn't know a damn thing about Brazil except, Mardi Gras, whatever. But anyway, they said, oh, and we want you to meet a few people who would like to know who you are and what something about you. So I walk into this room, which was a little bigger than this, and there must have been 50 people there, and a lot of them with cameras and flash guns and recorders and everything else, and they start throwing questions at me.
Right off the bat, you walk in.
I walk in because they were having an election in 3 days. They wanted to know who's going to win the election. I didn't even know they were having one. So here's where you go. This is really, you go right out on a limb.
Sure.
So I said, color. I'm seeing colors all over the place. He says, what does he look like? I said, he's a young man. He's handsome, well-dressed. Looks like what we used to call the yuppie in the old days. And I said, he's going to get elected. And his name turned out to be Fernando Collor de Mello. That made me famous in Brazil overnight. Everybody wanted to see me. Everybody wanted to take a class with me. Bang, 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 bang. I went back and forth to Brazil for over 10 years. And I made a lot of money there. I had a lot of very well-known clients. I also went down to Argentina, did very well there, and Peru.